Beginning in the spring of 2022, the angle sounded the alarm about the wisdom of the U.S. waging a proxy war for Ukraine against Russia. Now, we warned that our involvement would prolong the inevitable and lead to more destruction and, really sadly, bloodshed. I wish we'd been wrong. But the angle repeats. If Putin was really an existential danger to the EU would have carried the lion's share of the economic burden. But as we know, it did not. And now there's a new expose published in the Washington Post that paints a devastating picture of mismanagement, confusion, and finger-pointing in the conflict. The Pentagon is blaming it on the Ukrainian military, saying the goal had been to strike before Moscow was ready, and then the U.S. military had been trying since mid-April to get the Ukrainians moving. We were given dates. We were given many dates. A senior U.S. government official said, we had April, this, May, that, June. It just kept getting delayed. Then the Ukrainians are blaming the Pentagon. Ukrainian, U.S. and British military officers held 8 major tabletop war games to build a campaign plan, but Washington miscalculated the extent to which Ukraine's forces could be transformed into a Western-style fighting force in a short period, especially without giving Kyiv air power integral to modern militaries. Now, among the other key findings from this reporting, 70% of troops in one of the brigades leading the counteroffensive entered battle with 0 combat experience. At one point, the commander of U.S. forces in Europe couldn't get in touch with Ukraine's top commander for weeks in the early part of the campaign. That's reassuring. Now, the final conclusion might be the most depressing. In all, Ukraine has retaken only about 200 square miles of territory at a cost of thousands of dead and wounded and billions in Western military aid in 2023 alone. Now, despite, though, all the evidence suggesting America led the way in negotiation and some peace, the Pentagon, the State Department are still lying to us today, implying that victory is right around the corner, and they're smearing anyone who thinks it's time to demand a negotiated settlement.
I believe that any member of Congress who does not support funding for Ukraine is voting for an outcome that will make it easier for Putin to prevail. That is, a vote against supporting Ukraine is a vote to improve Putin's strategic position. That's just an inescapable reality.
No, Jake, the inescapable reality is that you're treating this not like a military campaign, but like a political campaign to save Biden from another failure in an election year. Joining me now, Florida Congressman Byron Donalds. Congressman, your response to Sullivan, again, trying to imply that anyone who votes against more funding down this rat hole in Ukraine is a Putin sympathizer.
Jake Sullivan is wrong, but why would we be surprised? He is the advisor to Joe Biden, who's been wrong at every single point throughout the Ukrainian conflict, throughout what happened in Afghanistan, and of course what's happening now with our greatest ally in the region, in Israel. He is wrong, but I have another message for Jake Sullivan in the White House. Secure the southern border. That's it. If you do that, then there's people in Congress who will be willing to listen and to talk to. But before that's done, there's nothing to talk about.
I think the idea of tying more Ukraine aid, given this, everyone needs to read this story in the Washington Post. It is devastating from beginning to end. It actually makes me really, really sad and angry about what we've done in that region.
Right.
But tying immigration, some immigration deal to Ukraine, why would we ever do that as a Republican Party?
And
They're two separate issues.
I'm not tying anything to Ukraine. What we're saying is if the administration wants to talk about supplemental funding for anything, the southern border must be secured first. Until that happens,
we don't have any money.
The House is closed. The House is going to look at the appropriation bills for the federal agencies, no more, no less. They got to do their job. Why would we continue to fund other operations in the world if our border remains unsecured? That makes no sense. That's basic mismanagement of the people's pocketbook and of the people's nation. We're not going to do that.
Well, yesterday, John Kirby spoke about tying the Ukraine funding to the border. Watch this.
In that supplemental request that we put forward, yep, there's money for Ukraine, which we desperately need. There's money for Israel. There's also money for border security. On day one of this administration, he put forward an immigration reform plan that has yet to be acted on. Congress basically ignored it. If they're serious about immigration reform, they ought to take that proposal up by the president. They ought to also pass our supplemental request.
take the deal? Because we know that Democrats can be trusted when they don't enforce the laws that are on the books. They can be trusted on an immigration deal.
Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. John Kirby, sorry. That's something that happened in the past. John, we're not doing that deal. So you might as well get that one out of your mind. Number two, border security does not require new money. It requires policy changes by the same administration that broke the southern border. That's it.
Now, Congressman, switching gears, the Oversight Committee that you're on says that in 2018, Hunter Biden sent payments to his father using a business account that received payments directly from China. According to the subpoenaed records, the payments were nearly $1,400 and happened monthly. Hunter's defense is that he was paying his dad back for car payments.
Oh, what car? This is a joke. Listen, one of the things, I'm from the banking industry. One of the things that we always knew is that if there were these loan agreements that were floating out there with no actual loan document, that is tantamount to money laundering and tax evasion. That's exactly what that is. You're trying to conceal the flow of money to somebody, and you're trying to conceal it from the Internal Revenue Service. Joe Biden has run the country for years saying that everybody needs to pay their fair share. He doesn't want to pay his fair share, and neither does his family. And they've been hiding that money from the IRS and from the American people.
Are you upset that Florida State didn't get into the college championship?
Oh, I'm a no, and I'm very upset. Look, let me be very clear. Texas should not have gotten in. Alabama beat the number one team in the country, got no issue with Bama. But Texas beat Alabama in week 3 when this is a very different Alabama team. And Oklahoma State was not as good as Louisville. Those are the facts.
Did you play football?
I didn't play football, but I watch enough of it. My son plays football. He plays at Holy Cross.
Oh, okay. Well, I have my Alabama pen, but they won't let me put it on because it's going to ruin my jacket. So here it is. It's really small. But I was at the game over the weekend. It was an awesome game. Congressman, great to see you.
Thank you.